Welcome. This is the Domain Name Law Show. We're here every Tuesday, noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. This is where we cover domain name legal news, and we also review recent UDRP decisions. There's three hosts to the show. My name is Todd Ryan. My co-hosts are David Michaels and Jeff Neuman. I'd like to say hello to them before we get rolling. Hey, David, how's everything going today?
Good.
Okay, let's
Cold.
slow it down
Nice,
right
nice
there.
and cold.
Yeah, I don't see Jeff. I know he's busy. How do I know? Well, we were at ICA Meetup together and working on a lot of cases, and we work on several things together. And from TLD strategies to some cases, and he is, the more I know about Jeff's workload, the more I wonder how he even has the time to do the domain name law show. I mean, basically, his plate is full. And this, we do try to prepare today. We have three cases, real simple cases, but I was going to mention a few things about, some WIPO stats from 2025. But first, we were going to recap. If Jeff was here, he would say a few things about the ICA meetup. And then on Thursday's show, Josh and I have, I'd say, a more full recap because then Josh will tell you his experience. I'll go back into my experience. But first, let me just say, big thumbs up. It was a fantastic show. And Camila and Tiffany put on, I mean, the work that it takes to put this show on. The month before is just so much, winding down the preparation, but the work, goes in all year long, it seems like to me. Anyway, this year was at the Park MGM, and I liked the facility because, when you got out of the elevator and walked right over to the conference room, but it was really just about the people there. And of course, people say that the cool thing about the ICA meetup, and David, I know you're an ICA member, but you haven't been to the meetup. Um, Maybe next year. I'll tell you, it's certainly worthwhile. And I know now you're probably, have you traveled any lately? I mean, any in 2025? Did you leave your home in 2025? Meaning, did you go to the airport and travel any place outside of Canada?
I've been to Niagara Falls and Buffalo by car, but I haven't flown anywhere.
Well, in a year you'll be
Last
ready.
time I was in Las Vegas was January 2020.
Well, perfect. Next year. But there were so many. Well, first of all, I was going to mention about some folks that were there. I'm just really thrilled with the meetup. But anyway, I didn't know Larry Fisher was his first time at the ICA meetup. Um, because I see Larry at other events, I guess NamesCon, and I was just really surprised that was his first meetup, and he brought his son Jeff, who is. We had a panel called the Next Gen panel, and it was Maria, who is Leo's daughter. There was Elise, who is the daughter of Park Logic, Michael Gilmore's daughter. And then, of course, Brett Miller, Andrew Miller's son, and Jeff Fisher, Larry Fisher's son. Interesting that some of the comments that they made about what they believe could bring attention to the domain space because they're obviously next generation. They're in their 20s. I think all of them, maybe one of them's early 30s. I don't know. But I was surprised. First of all, three of them from finance backgrounds, and one of them uh, is one of them was a nurse. She was a nurse, and I was like, "Who are your parents to tell you to come over to this business?" But we knew their parents. I just mentioned them. But it was really fantastic having this next generation of people there, and that they call the next gen. But ICA put on a great um, panel with them to introduce them and to really. I think that started off Thursday morning. Yeah, as a matter of fact, it did. I got in Thursday morning and immediately went to work with Tess, and we were introducing the next gen folks. And then they told us about themselves, and then we had a speed networking, which is really cool because you go to ICA, you know a lot of the folks, so you're going up and talking with them over coffee, really just all the time. But to have a speed networking where, okay, you're sitting at a table, you're talking to the people to the left of you, to the right, and then we, would make you switch every couple minutes. So basically were forced to meet new people and a lot of faces that you didn't recognize. But I invited Jeff. Did you see the co-host invite? Are you there? Sometimes it doesn't show. Let me do that again. But anyway, so I was mentioning Larry Fisher, first time there. It was cool seeing Jeremiah, our friend here. He is a new ICA member, and it was cool seeing him there. Very cool seeing Tony names there. I'm thinking of some people that was the first time I remember, seeing them at an event. And of course, a lot of you know Tony names from here on X, very popular domain investor, and it was fantastic. We'll talk more about him. Jeff, are you on stage now or no? I don't see him. Maybe I'll come back. Yeah,
What were
there's
the
so
legal
many.
things discussed at ICA? What was the cases? What kind of cases were you talking about? Court cases, UDRPs?
You mean when they were talking about, interesting, David, they were talking about, John Berryhill was talking about um, new LTO rules, and meaning, yeah, when you have a UDRP filed against a name that is currently under an LTO, it really can cause a major problem because you stop getting payments as the domain owner, but you don't get the domain back. The person leasing the name no longer gets to use the name. It basically gets locked and frozen. And there was some details that about a case that I believe he was working on, that John Berryhill was working on. He didn't give the details, but he had a really interesting, once again, guru table. But we didn't talk. I'm going to see Jeff. Let me see if Jeff's here. I don't remember talking about
I am
specific cases.
here,
Hey, Jeff.
but
Well, how's everything
hey,
going?
but for some reason, good, but for some reason, when you invited me to co-host, it disconnected me instead of putting me up. I don't know why it did that. But yeah, doing good, and I'm just listening. See, I'm gonna hit respond to your co-host and see what happens.
Okay. Maybe it'll work now with this. You know how this app is. It was, I was mentioning, Jeff, the more I know about your
Okay.
workload, I realize, that you're here. It's surprising over how consistent you, and I know David's busy too, but your workload makes it, to prepare for these cases. I really appreciate it, and to be here on Tuesdays. But so we were going to go over, I was talking about Larry Fisher, Tony names, Jeremiah, people who I don't see at the ICA, or it's like their first time showing up. Really happy to see them. And I was going to go over I was going to talk about some of the sessions and some of the others that were fantastic to see. But what, uh, what are some of your highlights when you think quickly about, the ICA the last week?
Yeah, I mean, I liked, and I came in as you were talking about the next gen panel. It's good to see some younger people that are going to have to take up the mantle when we leave in one way or another, leave the industry. Um, so I liked that. Um, the social events are always fun. So I know you got there Thursday, I got there Wednesday. So the night before everything officially started, we had kind of a party at Monty's restaurant, or one he's, one of the number of owners of, which is now a Mexican restaurant. It used to be more like American food or barbecue. Now it's Mexican, pretty good food. Um, but yeah, I mean, then I heard David's question about legal stuff. Wasn't really too much other than the UDRP panel and yes, yeah, some guru tables. I didn't go to John's like you did. We had a new TLD one that I was at, and then there was a session on ICANN that I was on the panel. So we just, yeah, between getting some things done during deadlines and being in different sessions, it's a great event and every year, and highly recommend it to everyone.
Yeah, mostly David. We're spending time with you. Like, okay, this person, I want to basically, like I would see. Darpin. I wanted to spend some time with him. Fortunately, Fred at Doma at D3, he had he sponsored like a cocktail party one evening. That was, I think, Thursday night. So had a chance to spend time with him, with Jeff Reberry and Darpin. I remember because those three, that are CEOs of their respective companies, there were, you want to, if you have some things you want to share, you want to talk with them about, very easy to get the audience of, other business leaders. And so that was really what I focused on was, okay, so when I see people at the get-togethers or the parties, let's talk a little business. It's really casual because a lot of the guys, are having some drinks. But so when it came to the UDRP, I know Zach did have, he had a presentation where he talked about really just the ICA's involvement in the business constituency. That's really important. Basically ICA's relationship and involvement with ICANN. And he talked about how we have a lot of members in the BC and we want to increase that for various reasons. And also he was talking about putting together the, basically, is there a need to revise, update the UDRP? And, we believe there is a lot of us that get involved in it. And Zach, Igor, Nat put together some ways they believe that the UDRP can be updated in a positive way, really for both sides. Many people think that the ICA is only doing it on behalf of domain investors, but really the ICA is an industry organization, and Zach is very adamant about not being adversarial with the trademark contingent, basically the side, the intellectual property owners, because many times it's the intellectual property owners or the trademark owners who are the complainants, like we're going to talk about, and then of course file the cases, and then the domain owner is a respondent, usually in a UDRP. So it's them against us if you're a domain investor. But like I said, Zach had a nice presentation about here's some things that we were, hoping that ICANN puts on their calendar, but he was basically making it clear to us how delayed that can be. Basically, it was a decade ago when we wanted to, begin addressing this, and then it's been already, like I said, 10 years, and they're really still just getting to it. But Jeff, do you recall anything about Zach's presentation about the UDRP that may be something worthwhile to talk about here today?
Well, I mean, he talked about the I think one of the things that I really picked up on, and he mentioned it a couple times, I think, was the fact that they're working, or they're going to work with WIPO hopefully on the next overview on a um, multi I'm saying multi-party, but multi-provider overview. WIPO's got an overview of cases up through 2017, but there's been nothing since. Zach and Nat started the UDRP Perspectives, which is, a great project that tries to go into newer issues and other cases at other providers. And it sounds like WIPO may be willing to cooperate on a multi-provider overview that ICA may help with as well. So that's kind of what I got out of it, which I thought was really important, and just shows the increasing influence of the ICA, in what just a few years ago, if you would have looked 10 years ago, you would have seen disdain for the ICA by WIPO and by trademark owners. And now they're more and more bringing us into the fold, which is great.
I'm writing down some notes that I wanted to share on Thursday about the ICA meetup, and I say on Thursday because then Josh and I do the DNX show, and we talk about domain investing. And Josh had a guru table, and I'm going to mention a little bit more about it here today about really what went on at the ICA. It's not all about the organization confronting ICANN or addressing issues with ICANN. There's one thing that, Jeff, we were at a business meeting together, and I missed the town hall. And that is something I'm really hoping that I know we're anticipating an ICA phone call to sort of, maybe bookend or, maybe do a recap with ICA about the meeting. And for people that didn't make it to this meetup, Arif comes to mind. And Arif, you did a fantastic job taking care of me and Josh on that DNX call. I listened to the first hour and I was like, geez, this guy is going to take our jobs, as they say. No, I really appreciated it. And fantastic job. Thank you last Thursday. But for some of you who were missed at the event, there's going to be a phone call. Normally ICA has sometimes a monthly phone call, at least quarterly. And without a featured person, it's just amongst, for us members to talk about what's going on, an update. And like I said, for a lot of the folks who didn't make the ICA event, it'd be nice to have a call and then talk about what went on there and give us time, a lot of us that attended, a time to have questions about things that maybe we heard or maybe we missed. Like I said, I missed the town hall, but I did I missed, several. I think I was there at the ICANN, right? Your session, Jeff. But anyway,
Yes.
there was a lot of sessions, not too many though, but a lot of sessions. But if you were right in the middle of a conversation with someone, like the guru tables, you could only be at one table at a time. There were 2 rooms with tables, so you just flat out couldn't be 2 places at once. But what were some of the sessions you recall, Jeff, or any that you know that you missed that you'd like to get an update on?
Yeah, I think the only one that I missed because we had to do some work was the town hall. I attended the Meet the Board. I attended the Zach's presentation on policy. Um, I did not attend the Ask Me Anything session, which I kind of, in an ideal world, I would have liked to be at. But um, yeah, I really just found it all helpful. A lot of the guru tables were at the same time, and so there were a couple I wished was able to get to, like John's, but because of the conflicting ones, wasn't able to do that. But they're all really good.
The AMA with Alan Shiflett. I'm trying to think. There was big news, of course. GoDaddy. It was a big news. So they allow $5 million LTOs, or LTOs up to $5 million. I mentioned we didn't get a lot of details on it, Jeff, but John said, "Boy, if you have an LTO and a domain that's under a lease and you get a UDRP, boy, is that a big mess." And I wasn't clear on. But basically you stop getting payments, but you don't get the name back. It's locked. The person doesn't get to use it. The name's locked. The normal things, but I don't recall the additional issues, because it seemed like there was more to it, and why really need to be sensitive when you're leasing out domain names. And I can't even remember who's responsible for the UDRP. I'm assuming it's the domain owner, but of course the person that was leasing it may have instigated or caused the UDRP by how they were using it, or who knows if they, leased the name, weren't using it as a site, and were calling to try to sell it to somebody. So there's things that I'm going to reach out to John and see if he can join us sometime. Andrew Alleman said he'd be happy to join us sometime. He'd be a great guest for this show, also the DNX show, but he writes so many articles, of course. Quickly, so David, you'll like this. There was a couple awards that were given away. The Trailblazer Award was given to Richard Kirkendall at fucking Namecheap, which, got my goat a little bit, because he's not an ICA member. The ICA, more than fair as an organization, they let, when it comes to nominating, you can anyone, you can be a member or not, and you can nominate a person to be, the trailblazer, who's done some pioneering things in the business, right? And there were several nominations, and then only members can vote. But anyway, so I don't know, a bunch of ICA members voted for Richard to be the friggin' trailblazer. I already cussed enough at the fucking event, so I'm not even going to do it much here. But was a so I mean, to me, I'm like a bunch of SAG people. We don't vote for somebody that's not in the union. But I'm not mad at Richard. But I was like, is he ever here? I've never seen the guy. Then I hear that he's not a member. So I'm like, and first of all, of course, I'm biased. I'm thinking uh, Chad Folkening is, in my opinion, is a trailblazer in this space. I think Todd Hahn is too. I know obviously there's several, Monty, but there's several. So this is a new award. Last year, Darpin won it. And I think Darpin, I like him so much, but still, he's been around 10 years. I mean, these other guys been around 30 years. Then Richard, he's been around forever. He made whatever that $1 billion transaction. I know it wasn't a billion because they only bought part of Namecheap. But anyway, so Richard won the Trailblazer Award. Not a member of the ICA. Maybe he'll loosen up and spend $50 a month. I don't know. But anyway, I don't know him. I'm gonna pin him down. Have him. He needs to join the ICA. A lot of you need to really join the ICA. It's our only organization. If you're a domain investor, you can join for $25 a month. Of course, really, that's the beginner, an individual membership, $50 a month. It really is just worth it. And next time that we have a membership call, we'll see. I don't know how it's going to go and when it is, but maybe it can be a welcoming call too for people. Have part of the call for those who aren't members who would like to know a little bit more. But you can always reach out to the ICA, to Camila or Tiffany, and say, hey, I'm interested in joining, but well, what why is it worth my time to join? To me, going to this event or just being on the calls is worth it. Now, of course, at this event, I'm hanging out with Michael Awada, Roger Kim, Steve Kaziev. These are like my guys, who I like to hang out with. Of course, getting with Jeff Neuman here and Chad. Those are my business partners. Those are, I say, tighter circle, But there's all sorts of guys I just like to hang out with, have some laughs. Certainly, it was important for me to see Josh, Reason I do a show with. I'd love it, and Mike Seiger, but it's okay. So the Trailblazer Award went to Richard. Then they did the Lonnie Bork Award, went to Elliot Silver. That, in my opinion, really made sense and well deserved. Reason that because Elliot, good friends with Lonnie, who was a gentleman who had passed 10 years ago, but he was well known amongst a lot of the domain investors in the industry. And anyway, Elliot, for several reasons, I think well deserving of that award. Although, like I said, I still felt like of that award, who Jeff right here on stage, Jeff could be the Trailblazer or the Lonnie Bork. So there's two awards there. I could be biased, but even if I wasn't, partners with these guys, I'm smart enough to sit back and know, all right, who was doing this, doing stuff 30 years ago. Jeff, like when you're, helping create the UDRP and you, Jothan, a few others, on 75, 80 ICANN meetings. It's unbelievable. So, I don't know. I was really thinking, we'll see, I'm going to nominate Jeff next year for both of them. But, all right. So that was what I just wanted to thank
I
you.
used the reference. Well, thank you for
Yeah.
the nomination and for anyone else who nominated me. Um, I compare myself, and I'm it's a dated reference, but I compare myself to the Susan Lucci of the ICA Award. For those that don't know who that is, Susan Lucci was nominated for every year for an Emmy for like 10 years in a row and never got it. Or she may have gotten it her very last year or something. But it's an honor to be nominated. I never expect to win, but it's nice to I don't think enough people I know enough people at the ICA or that they know me, and what I've done historically. So it's in some ways it's popularity, in some ways they want to vote for those for other investors, um, who have done really well. I'm not an investor, so that's that. Yeah, I appreciate being nominated, but I never expect to win it.
And everyone's gracious there. I was going to say no one's, I'm not even really mad at Richard. People wanted to vote, but I always thought, you need to be a member. Elliot, well deserving. Of course, I like when I think about just there's certain folks head and shoulder. If I was nominated for it, if I would have won, I would have been embarrassed. I would have said, obviously not. In comparison, there's just some people that have really spent so many man hours, working in the space and working like, especially, and for a long time, Jeff, it was a lot of lawyers that were winning the Lonnie Bork Award because of just where the business was, I guess, where the relationship was with ICANN, and just helping mold. A lot of attorneys and panelists help mold the aftermarket by saying domain investing is in fact a legitimate business. And that's why, we'll get into that. Arif, it's nice to have you up here. We certainly missed you. Everybody was like, yeah, where's Arif, making jokes? Alan Shiflett was like, hey, if no one has any questions, let's get Arif on the phone. But Arif, how you
Yeah,
doing today?
not so bad, not so bad. I have a fractured ankle that I'm slowly recovering from. So it's that was end of December. So it's just been couch bound more than anything else. But I just wanted to say I both nominated and voted for Jeff. And Jeff, I just now that we're in this room here right now, Elliot has done a lot for this industry. Very 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 deserving, very accomplished. But I do think that you've done so much for the industry, and especially the extra, like you're here week after week, but even more is last year when you were standing behind me when I made my comments, it just showed how much you care about this industry, and it's just I hope you get it next year is all I'm going to say. But you really just because you didn't win there doesn't mean that you're not appreciated. I really do appreciate everything you do for this industry, and it goes back to before I was even a domainer. So thanks for that. And
Yeah,
yeah,
thanks, RFI. Yeah, Elliot, I didn't mean to sound like Elliot didn't deserve. He's been
no,
around for a very long
he
time, and
does a lot, yeah.
his
But
blog is great and read by a lot of people, and he's done a lot of things, and certainly was friends with Lonnie, who the award's named after, and with his wife, and just did a lot of things. So he is well deserving, and
yeah,
um,
yeah.
but thank you for your
Yeah,
comments.
it's why, I nominated you and I voted for you. And again, it's not to take away from anybody else. Like, so that's the problem. Sometimes everybody's well deserving, and especially with these kinds of awards. Sometimes people think short term, just the last year. Sometimes think it's a lifetime thing. So it's it is what it is. It comes out, and again, there's a lot of people who are very deserving, and we'll get you next year is what it's going to come down to.
It's cool. It's a cool event. First
Thanks.
of all, Jeff, I wanted to say, right, no one's, I mean, I act like a sourpuss, but I could, care less. I think it is awesome that we all get together and people are going to, I mean, fair and square vote for who they want. When it comes to, like I said, I think everybody should be a member of the ICA. If the ICA is giving you an award, it only makes sense to me. But, I really appreciate from what, okay, Drew Rosner wasn't there, but he really, Media Options always very supportive. Todd Hahn at Dynadot, there's a lot of money that it takes to put on this event, and believe it, it's not cheap. Vegas is not inexpensive anymore, and they just did a fantastic job, and our food was great, and like I said, the facilities were exactly what we needed, and this was our first year at this Park MGM. Whether they do it their next year, I guess jury's still out. It's probably got a pretty good shot. But with regards to the only issues, sometimes we have big rooms. There's ways to make them a little smaller with dividers. So when someone is given a presentation, you don't have everybody all spread out, because then there's also something going on in another room, and you just make it easier for the. But anyway, the sound, everything was fantastic. I heard it wasn't great at NamesCon. But anyway, what a great event. I love seeing from, like I said, Brady, Unstoppable, him and Matt were there, but Steve Kennedy as domain investors. But I just enjoyed it fully. Oh, Arif, we did roast. Braden Pollock was our roast. we were the
Yeah.
roasters. There were 6 of us roasting Braden. You can imagine, went pretty good. We really got him. And anyway, so that I did see um, a video of that portion, and yeah, it was funny. I liked it myself, but it was very fun to no holds barred. The room was packed, and everybody you know basically in good spirits, and took it like a man. But I think you would have enjoyed that. Next year, I hear there is going to be another roast. Who knows who it'll be? But I knew it went well when Ron Jackson and his wife Diana came up to me afterwards and were saying, "Geez, I think it was fun and no hard feelings." And I think it was a roast, so we needed to be a little edgy. But there was some I would say edgy stuff, yeah, of course. So that's how Friday finished. Or I'm sorry, Thursday finished up, and then Friday. Well, I think what we'll do now is move on with some of our legal news, and then if you want to know, full on about the ICA meetup, I'm writing down notes of discussions I had with folks. There's a new payment, like a competitor to escrow.com, and escrow.com was represented there. It was very great to see them. But Jackson Elsgood, who was at escrow for years, then went to Stripe, has a company called Newly.com, Newly.com, and they're a payment processor purely for domain transactions. So a lot was going on. I mean, a lot of business happening. But so if you want to join us Thursday morning, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, right here on X, check out the DNX show with Josh and I. And of course, we played pickleball. That was fantastic. We can go on and on. Here, we've already spent a half hour in the room on Thursday. We got a little bit more time, and I know Josh has a lot to share. He, DNX, helped sponsor, some of the events. Just, it's great. The great thing about it, it's not just your ICA membership dues paying for this, and it's not inexpensive, but a lot of the folks we know, from the registrars, registries, parking companies come together and help sponsor different breakfasts, dinners, and so on, and events, and it's just a lot of fun. And like I said, we'll give you even a bigger recap on Thursday. Getting on to what we do today. Yeah, go ahead.
One question I want to have is a little bit more on the legal side, I guess, but kind of. Did they mention anything about talking about the scope of the ICA at all? Like I mentioned, I'd asked for last year.
Well, I
They
didn't
said they
make it
would
to
get
that would be the
to
town
shortly afterwards.
hall and some of the other things. That was Friday.
Okay.
And like as we mentioned, Jeff and I were handling some business, and that was like several hours right in the sort of the middle of the day, and that's where I would guess when the town hall, when people have questions there, if exactly like, hey, so really what's going on, what are some of the things the ICA is doing and getting ready for in 2026, what's the priorities of the ICA, and like you said, has anything changed with the mission and the scope? But no, I mean, I'm assuming if those things were discussed, because even there was a session with, right, I think it was the town hall with Nat that I didn't get to see, and of course that would have been very important for me. I would have liked to have heckled Nat a little bit. No, we had such a great time having fun, all of us. But yeah, so I missed, I think the times when they would have mentioned that, and I know, I'm hoping on our post meetup phone call, a lot of us can hear about what went on it during the town hall, some of the questions. So anyway, follow the ICA Twitter, so then we'll know when there's going to be a phone call, but I'm sure they'll send us an email as well. Getting to the one news article I had on today's outline at dnlshow.com/outline. So in the WIPO put out their 2025 summary of how many cases, and they had over 6,200 cases last year, which I guess 5 years ago, 6 years ago, I don't know if you took a look at it, David, but in 2020 there was like 3,800 cases or 3,600. So it's really increased substantially. I in the last 6 years, I knew it was going to go up, but so over 6,200 cases. I looked at what TLDs, of course, .com had the most, but what TLDs and CCTLDs had the most, and then what companies filed the most. But David, did you have a chance to look at that WIPO summary from 2025 and anything stand out to you?
Actually, I haven't looked at it in any detail, so I can't really comment, but it's interesting that there were 132 .code decisions, 39 .eus, 55 .ccs, so and 72 .ais. So that's very interesting. .ai has they have a disproportionate number of UDRPs. So interesting.
Yeah, Jeff. I mean, I thought it was interesting because they kept it pretty concise and talked about, of course, .com was like 5,700, and then the second most UDRPs for this is at WIPO was the .shop, and then .net, and then .org. I haven't got to the CCTLDs, but did you anything from that report strike you as unusual or interesting?
No, I mean, look, the number of domains has also gone up, right? So, every year the number of disputes goes up pretty much, and every year the number of domains goes up. So, WIPO always makes this grand announcement that, cyber squatting is the worst it's ever been, and there's more and more cases, but there's more and more domains. So obviously there's going to be more and more cases. The real question, which I have not taken the time to figure out, is whether the proportion of cases to the number of domains has actually grown. Because that would mean that there's an increase in cyber squatting. But when both the number of domains increases and the number of cases increase, that's just not a surprise, but you got to look to see the proportion. WIPO uses it always as a chance, and God bless him for doing it, right? As a chance to promote WIPO and to promote the work it does. And it's got every right to do that. But so I tend to not pay too much attention to that.
So the URS is not included in these stats, is that correct?
I don't believe it is. I think just UDRP and the CCTLD version of the UDRP, whether it's called the UDRP or like the United States called the USDRP, or I don't know what Canada, you would know, calls their dispute resolution. Is it the CDRP?
CDRP.
There you go. Yeah, so it's those stats. But I guess
Right.
WIPO doesn't do the CDRP, right?
That's right, they don't. But my question was about the URS because it seems there's very few NGTLDs on this list, and I would expect a whole lot more. So I'm thinking those are just handled through the URS.
No, it's the URS is not used very much because the URS only the remedy is to cancel a name, not for a transfer. So, most trademark owners don't want to deal with a URS and then getting a decision in its favor only to have the name deleted when it expires, or they could pay for an extension of 1 year. But, that just sort of defeats the purpose. And so without a transfer remedy, the URS really does not get used too often.
Hey, let me welcome Ryan. I believe it's Ryan, 420 Studio. Hey, Ryan, what's going on? Nice to have you. Any question or comment?
What's up, guys? Long time, Todd. It's been a while. I was speaking with Eddie Seixto, and he told me there was a room going on about domain law. So he sent me the link. So thank you, Eddie, and great to see everyone here today.
Well, nice to have you. We just here we have an outline, dnlshow.com/outline. And Ryan, if you haven't been here in a while, we go over some legal news. Today we did a mini ICA recap because there was a meetup in Vegas last week. And we're going to go really have a longer recap with me and Josh on Thursday. We got a room we do DNX show every Thursday, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, right here on X. But for those who don't know, we also stream this on YouTube, and then, of course, we have replays on Spotify and Apple. But anyway, yeah, Ryan, it's nice to have you. If you have comments, let us know. I was going to quickly say about this WIPO summary from 2025. So a lot of cases, the top TLDs, of course, .com, .shop was second, .net was third, .org was fourth, .online was fifth, and then .top and .site. So not, not .online, .top, .site, maybe extensions that you don't, as investors, buy as much, or at least I don't. But yet they did appear on the radar for UDRP filings. So you can imagine, I'll say about the CCTLDs, the top CCTLD that was part of UDRPs or included was .co, second .au, third was .ai, fourth .cn. Now, these are just the ones that WIPO handles. So there are plenty of CCTLDs that WIPO is not involved with. But finally, I'll just say the top 10 filers were Michelin, Philip Morris, Instagram, WhatsApp, Lego. I mean, there's a few others, but the point is, if you're even messing around with Philip Morris or, one of their brands, you can expect to be on the receiving end of a UDRP. Same with Michelin. You can imagine who's going to put Michelin in a domain name unless you probably are, cyber squatting on their name. So then what we do is we go through usually some recent UDRP decisions. Today, it's going to be very simple. We have very simple cases, really unusual cases. I picked these cases because of the domain names. And then after I looked at the cases, I realized really not much there at all. This very first case, LABM.com. This was a 4-letter .com. I picked it out because I thought, why is this a transfer? I see a transfer, and I didn't look at the case, and I'm like, how could someone lose this name unless they were specifically targeting a company that, LABM, maybe it was the acronym, or maybe, but anyway, this name was registered in 2001. The complainant in this case is a company called Neogen Corp here in the U.S., Neogen. So they filed this UDRP against this domain registrant in Belgium, and, well, there's really hardly any facts to the case other than the name was previously sold. David, tell us
let me
about
fill you in some facts.
what happened there. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so the owner gave up, just want to settle it, didn't want to deal with the UDRP. The registrant is the guy in Belgium, but the website showed a UK address with different people involved, and they were doing the same business as the Belgium company, which is they sell lab supplies and they run tests on various things for like urine tests, virus tests, bacteria, all that kind of stuff. So it's like a regular lab. And so they're called LabM. And based in the UK, they feature their names on the website. It's all on archive.org. But they just gave up. Maybe the business wasn't really moving, wasn't making the money. I don't know, but it had a really good, okay, so this domain name was sold in a GoDaddy auction in February 2024 or 25, I think. Which one was it? It was
Yeah, it was 24.
24,
So 2 years
February
ago.
3rd, 2024 for $51.20. So that's a lot of money. It had a DR of 53, so it's extremely valuable. It has a lot of authority. It's getting a lot of traffic. They gave up. Why? They didn't have to. They could have won. This was an easy win. And registration day is from 2001, but they only acquired it in 2024. But the complainant did not have a trademark in the UK where they were running the business or in the EU, and they abandoned their US trademark 3 years ago. So how did this complainant win? Well, they asserted their Canadian trademark and their Mexican trademark, probably. That's all I could find. but it was enough to scare these guys. So it tells you how people are so scared of UDRP. They do not understand that they can fight it and they can win, especially a name like this. They spent so much money for it.
They
What do you
likely
think, Jeff?
this is a case where they likely, if they didn't respond, they had a much greater chance. Obviously, they threw in the towel. But Jeff, what do you say about a case like this? LABM.com.
Yeah, well, look, we don't know if there were communications. Um, when was it filed? This was okay. It was filed on the 7th, and then they sent it out the 12th. Okay, yeah, because of the dates, you're probably right. It was just a. Sometimes people do write this too, like when they've settled. Um, there's other ways to do it, right? By saying it's been settled, but this one, I guess it was right after. It must have been right after they received the complaint. So, look, some things are worth fighting for, some things are not, and maybe they just figured retaining counsel to defend them, was just not worth it, and for whatever reason they weren't using it. And we never know what's behind all this stuff, but yeah, people get scared when served with formal legal documentation. But it's
Well,
impossible to
yeah.
know absent
Yeah, they did.
anything
The
else.
issue here is they did more work than if they didn't answer. If they would have just ignored it, we do see. So there was a single member panelist here, Nicholas Smith, and he basically said, "All right, well, we got an email from the respondent. It wasn't a formal response, but informal response where the domain owner sent in and said, I do not contest the complaint and consent to the transfer of the domain name to the complainant. And this consent is provided solely to resolve the matter promptly without any admission of liability or wrongdoing." That's already, that's what they sent into
Well,
the
that's
form.
form language. That is provided. I believe the forum provides that language. It says, this is an option as well. So that language, I think, is copied from the forum.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. But I mean, so this person did, um, anyway, they did check a box and respond. If this would have been a no response, this Nicholas Smith would have said, okay, LABM. Let's assume, like most panelists, they don't do much research other than maybe to see, okay, well, this was, well, then again, we don't know the full on complaint, all the claims made by the
Right. We
complainant.
don't know. Right. We don't know if this person was using it in an infringing way. We have no idea how it was being used. And
Well, we
I
do,
guess,
from archive.org, it shows how it was being used. So it was not being used in an infringing way. There was no trademark infringement because there was no trademark registration, and LabM actually did not appear on the website other than the URL.
yeah, but do we know that they weren't using it for email or anything else? Like, look, the point is, we don't have all the facts and we can look into things,
Oh,
but
I'm sure they were getting all the stray emails meant for labm.com, but who was the previous owner of labm.com? Because Neogen's trademark had a trademark for it, but they abandoned it 3 years earlier in the US, and they're based in Michigan. They didn't
yeah,
renew their trademark.
again, without a response, it all depends on what the panelist researched.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
and not only without a response, David, I was going to say it's without knowing the full on complaint, because they could have mentioned that, yes, this person did, when they got it in 2024, the very first thing they did was try to sell it to us back for
Right.
15,000 or 100,000, and then we didn't want it, so then they went ahead and started their own little thing. But basically, could have made us aware in the complaint that yes, this person was, when they picked it up in 2024, they were well aware of us. Yeah, so there's just so much we don't know. But one, they wouldn't have checked the box that, yeah, I'm willing to give up. Then the Nicholas Smith would have had to say, okay, let me summarize. Here's the complaint, and here's why I am saying let's transfer this domain name. In this case, there's no reason to just don't respond. I don't know why you'd want to give in unless you were like, geez, I am infringing on Amazon. I'm afraid, I don't understand the UDRP. I hope I don't get a $100,000 penalty. They think it's an ACPA action, and that's why you just, oh my gosh, I'm scared that there could be some penalty here, which there isn't. It's only a transfer of the name. So, right, a lot that we don't know. But when I see great four letters like that, and LA is fantastic. LA can be Los Angeles. LABM.com. So this name was transferred to the complainant, and more to the story than we know. So it was a weird case to put in there. I thought it was going to be something meaty we could really examine, but it wasn't. The respondent just basically said, go ahead and transfer it. Nicholas Smith didn't look at anything else, didn't look at whether there really was a trademark, really was legitimate use or bad faith registration, didn't need to because of the registrant willing to transfer. So that one's a transfer. We'll go on to our next case, which is more interesting because there was no reply, but yet we learn about what the complainant was claiming, and the domain name is headout.info. Headout.info. So a lot of us have said in the past, hey, I'm going to head out. Okay, head out is a term that, seemed to me everyone's used at some point. But anyway, the complainant in this case, Head Out Incorporated in the U.S., filed this against a UK domain registrant. Okay, so the complainant in this case has like a website that allows, I don't know, it simplifies your travel experiences, whatever that means. Okay, doesn't matter. This is company Head Out Inc. says we're well known. We have these trademarks since 2022. When you hear Head Out, people know it's us, which I've never heard of them before. I'm sure a lot of you out there have not heard of them, but the complainant is on the domain headout.com. So it's not like they're going after the .com because they're on the .info and they're just jealous. So I give them some credit thinking, okay, were they being targeted here for some reason? The complainant said that, of course, the respondent has no legitimate interest in this domain name, even though they hold it passively. So the domain owner wasn't doing anything with it. You just own headout.info, and seems to me like it's generic enough that you can own it in any extension. And if you're not doing anything with it, how can they catch you for doing something wrong with it? The domain did not even resolve. In this case, the respondent didn't reply, and the panelist said because of the fame of the mark, the respondent must have known about this, so basically ruled for a transfer in this case. Now, David, starting with you, headout.com. Did you ever hear of that website or that company?
Never heard of it before today. And like, why would they assume that? And sure, if you're registering the .info, you know that the .com is taken, and maybe take a look at what's there. But if they're doing a totally different business, then it's no problem. Now, this particular domain name has been registered in the past by previous owners, according to Security Trails, A records. It's been registered multiple times since the last 20 years. Why wasn't there a UDRP before? And unless they can prove phishing or something like that, there's no cause for a transfer. This particular case, like head out is a verb phrase, it's very common. It could be used for so many different things. And if they were using it for email, that's fine. If they weren't using it, if it was parked, that should have been fine. But they misapplied the passive holding doctrine. They said that, oh, the passive holding doctrine says we can still transfer it even if there's no use. Well, that's not how the passive holding doctrine works, because Telstra has multiple points in it, and they missed those. This panelist, I think, messed up. What do you think, Jeff?
So, I mean, when I first saw head out, right, it seems like a pretty generic term, but then I looked at the US Patent and Trademark Office, I looked at the UK Patent and Trademark Office, I looked on Google, and every search I came up with, the complainant showed up, and nobody else did. Um, on Google, I went through the first 8 screens. of unsponsored results, and it was all related to the headout, the complainant's trademark. And so, while in theory it sounds like headout should be, um, more generic and descriptive, and um, I can understand why the panelists decided it in this way. I don't like the passive use, the way that they brought it up. But the fact that when you're looking at all these other sites and things, there's really no one else. Um, I don't mind, and the respondent didn't respond. I don't mind it as much. I don't feel as bad for the respondent.
I mean, it's making me feel like domain investors, domain registrants. We have to. I don't know why. I know due diligence is an appropriate term, but there's another word I'm looking for. Just obligated to do research. The name is head out. So before I register a name with head out, um, I need to do some research to see who's. It just doesn't make sense to me because it is a common phrase, and I think, Jeff, do you think if this person would have responded and said, um, "I registered head out because I know that's just a common term, and I've under penalty of perjury, I've never heard of this company, headout.com. I didn't register this name with them in mind. I registered it because head out is just a common phrase. If they would have answered with just that, do you think that would have made a difference? As James Bridgman was solo panelist, would that have made a difference in your opinion?
I mean, if they provided some corroborating evidence of why they got it, and more than just a statement, but some plans to use it or anything like that, just relying on a statement is probably not enough. But yeah, if they responded, there were, I'm sure, ways that they, especially if they didn't approach the complainant at all, didn't ask for any compensation. You know, we don't know. I mean, nothing was said, right? So assuming that the complainant would have put that in their complaint and it would have been mentioned here as a respondent, that's what I would have, leaned on. Not that I never heard of this company, because like I said, all you do is type in head out in Google, and all the results you get are to this complainant.
Yeah, no, but
Right,
who,
but I
So
think
I,
that the question really is it a famous mark? So like Lego, everybody in the world knows Lego, and so you cannot use the mark for anything else. But headout could be used for multiple things because it's not as famous as they asserted in their complaint. You
sure,
could
and if
use
he
things like
provided
WIPO.
evidence, of how he was going to use it, or he provided evidence that he's a professional domain investor and he's got lots of names that are very similar, um, maybe that would have done benefit. But like I said, when I first saw it, I was like, oh, this, head out, that just sounds, we all like, get your head out of your ass, right? Like we all say the term head out, or I'm heading out or whatever
yeah,
to
everyone
go
says I'm going
somewhere.
to head out. I'm going to head out. I can't imagine even if you did search it, Jeff. Okay, I searched it and I see this one company. It's like me searching deep shit. Okay, so there's one company. It's a phrase anyway. I'm just saying. I'm going to. How many people have said or heard somebody else say, "Hey, man, I'm going to head out." All right. So now, even if you saw that there's a company that has it, now, oh no, I can't get it. It seems like when I search head out, there's this one company that really uses it more than anybody else. So now I can't have this common term. I mean, it's just like this. I guess what I'm getting at is if this person said, I got it because it's a common phrase, and then you as a panelist say, well, I need more evidence of why or your reason for it. I just told you my reason. It's a common phrase. Well, if the panelist feels like, well, it's not common enough, and then you felt like their trademark is popular or famous enough, then that person loses. This was just a, a weird one, meaning the person registered head
Yeah, I
out
mean,
without
look, if you say
mentioning
it's a
the.
common phrase, that's one thing, but it's more how you were going to use the name. And so presumably, if I were to be representing a respondent, I wouldn't just say I never heard of them and it's a generic phrase, especially if they're not a domain investor, they're just any, someone. They're a domain investor, then you put that in because it's a legitimate business and it's a common word or common phrase. But if you're just not a domain investor, um, panelists want to hear, why did you register the name? And if you could provide a good reason, great. Then you're home free. But
Yeah, and I
there's
guess
got
that,
to be a why that's answered.
well, in that case, they couldn't say, yeah, because I'm a domain investor, but that's like somebody owning Get Lost or an axe to grind. All right, that's a common phrase, but there's a company that's using that. What were you going to do with it? Well, I don't know, sell it or sit on it. Well, you can't sit on it because that's passive. I'm just saying it's like, I do understand in many cases they want you to have a plan for the name, but as us domain investors, we buy a lot of names. So no, we don't have a specific plan for each one of them. But
Well, then you say, I'm a domain investor, and the reason I picked it is blah, 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 and I own these other names. But if you just have one name, I mean, it was headout.info, right?
yeah, I'm just say I only
Who
have two other
knows?
names. I'm just starting out as domain invest. I got you. No, there is the panelist
You
only
just got
wants
to
as
answer the why.
many facts as he can so he can make a decision. And when there's no response, it it is easy. This was Matthias Lilligren, not James Bridgman. That's the next case. Matthias Lilligren. Anyway, that was a transfer. So headout.info. This person owned it, didn't answer. This complainant did a nice job saying we've owned this trademark since 2022. We're pretty famous. We're on headout.com. I don't know, unless there's, why would they want the .info unless they really felt like this person was ready to do something to affect or disrupt their business? Because, usually, now I could, if it was they were on headout.info and they were going after headout.com, then boy, then I would have really hated to see a transfer. Then it's a case of they're just wanting the .com for obvious reasons. But anyway, so yeah, I'm not on the fence on this decision. I mean, I don't think they should have won, but don't really care too much. I only spent a couple bucks on the .info. Well, let's get to the next case and then go our merry ways for the day. And I'll bring up again, on Thursdays, we have a room about domain name investing, and it's an open discussion. So everybody knows here, Domain Name Law Show, we talk about some legal news, we review a few UDRP decisions, try to keep it, on domain legal topics, and we follow our outline. On Thursdays, Josh and I, like I said, open discussion. Everybody can join the conversation. We talk about anything, everything domain investing. Josh always giving a lot of domain investing tips. And boy, he gave some great stuff at the guru table that he headed at the ICA. And I'm going to have him recap that and share a lot of the stuff that he was talking about. He gave more results to his experiment last year when he registered, I don't know, like 5 to 10,000 names, um, with certain, certain prefixes, certain suffixes, and so on. But so that's Thursday, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, the DNX show. We'll do our final case today, and that is snapsnoop.com. So the domain spells just like it sounds, SNAPSNOOP.com, SnapSnoop. The complainant in this case was Snapchat, the big company Snap, and they filed it against this individual who's out of France. The complainant, of course, Snapchat, has all sorts of Snap and Snapchat trademarks. They've been around since 2011, but a lot of their trademarks came 15, 18, so on. But the complainant, Snapchat, says the disputed domain resolves to a website offering hacking and spying tools, and they were even, it wasn't fair use. They say they were using our logo, and basically, I don't know how much people were confusing to think, oh, this must be Snapchat. But the long story short is this single member panelist said, yeah, you made it pretty clear. They didn't answer back. They were trying to offer a product that hacks or spies on, the Snap app, and the single member panelist filed or said this is going to be a transfer, ruled that there was no legitimate use, that was a bad faith registration because it was just registered this time last year, January 6, 2025. But I wanted to ask both of you, can someone register a domain name that's, because we see a lot of products that, hey, this is a tool you use with this particular company, whether it's a spy tool or a hacking tool, is there a way this could have been legitimate use by this domain owner, even though it was a tool to, I can't say enhance, but take advantage or manipulate Snapchat?
That's a good question. Like a lot of people have like YT download, or um, we've seen a lot of cases with Facebook or FB download, those types of names, and they always get transferred. My question is, should those be treated as more like the Yoki data test, where you're really trying to show that your product is specifically tailored to this particular platform, like Blue Sky Download, videodownload.com, for example, and that way you can actually know what place you're going to and download stuff. NetScoop, this guy did actually have a landing page that said he was going to create or provide these types of hacking tools, but I don't think it was actually a hacking tool. It's just like access Snapchat without being logged in, so you can, I guess, spy on people. And is there a business that could be made out of that? Sure, private investigators could do that for law firms because they're investigating divorce cases and they want to have information on people, like what they're posting, or not just divorce cases, insurance cases. Those are even bigger because, oh, here's me skydiving a week after my car accident, that type of thing. They want to see those things. So that could be legitimate, but the way it was presented with no response is crazy. With the escort service on there afterwards, allegedly, I couldn't verify that. Yeah, that's definitely not good. So what do you think, Jeff?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, one might ask, well, is SnapScoop confusingly similar to Snap? Um, again, if the argument was made and there was a response and it was being used for legitimate purposes, I think there could be a case there. But I think the the fact that they previously used it in the way that they did, although not really the escort, like if you are a valid escort service and legal and all that stuff, then it would be a bona fide use. Yes, there are cases out there where it was illegal escort service, which is what that was. Those cases were. Then yeah, that's not a bona fide use. But a legal escort type service could very well be a bona fide use. The hacking, not so much, right? Um, so, in an ideal world where these weren't the facts, certainly a case could be made for others to use SnapScoop. Um, but this one just has too many negative facts because of the previous use.
Well, before we wrap up, so somebody
It's interesting that this name
Go ahead.
was registered in the past by others, but did not have an active website, like the past 10 years.
Yeah, and it wouldn't be something that would have been on anyone's radar, likely, even for Snap. But the fact that it at one point had, and it probably came up with the corporate service that they use to do those kinds of searches, it probably came up, and I doubt it's actually harming them in any way. But the fact that whoever does their brand protection found this, it's a relatively easy case at that point.
Well, I don't expect an easy answer, but when someone builds a site and says, hey, we're going to show you all the specials on Amazon, or we're going to show you all the posts related to domain name law on X, you can build a site or a service that goes into someone else's um, business and basically manipulates or organizes the data in certain ways. It happens a lot. I don't know. Those aren't illegal businesses, right? So you can, a lot of companies have an API to their website, and then people connect to it, and then they'll sort or organize that data in, an innovative way or some way to help other customers. But that's legal, right?
There are legal tools, and if it's legal, yeah, there are legal hacking tools. Um, there are legal escort services. So, um, I think Snap's attorneys were a little overly broad, and the decision was a little overly broad. But at the end of the day, if the use is legal, then it would be bona fide.
Right. And they would just have to explain it and lean on the fair use, um, some of the fair use. I don't know what word I'm looking for. Um, Not ability. Well, I'm done for the day. Well, all right. So the three cases we had, they were all transfers. Next week, we're going to have some more interesting cases, and we also are going to talk about GTLDs because the next round is happening this year. Basically, the application window opens at the end of April, and the new GTLD guidebook was released December 16th. Um, some updates or some new things to it, but we're going to talk a little bit of detail about contested strings, that what may happen here in this upcoming round, and talk a little bit about GTLDs, any other latest legal news we'll touch on, and then we'll have 3 UDRP decisions, recent ones, to touch on next week. Thanks for joining us today, whether it's live or whether it's on replay. This is the Domain Name Law Show. We're here every Tuesday, noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. As I mentioned, we'll certainly be here next week, same time. And join us this Thursday if you can for the DNX show. That's 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. Thank you to my co-host, Jeff Neuman, David Michaels. Thanks again to everybody. Have a great rest of the day wherever you're at. Enjoy your time. Take care.